Hey everyone, it's Deanna. Today, we're diving into a creepy crime story. Stick around for the chilling details. Like many teenagers, Alexis Rasmussen was looking for a way to earn money and become independent and self-sufficient. She chose to work as a babysitter, a role she held until September 2011. She was hired to watch over the children of a married couple who were planning to go on a date. While everything was supposed to go smoothly, it turned into a real nightmare. Alexis Rasmussen was born in 1995, and her family resided in the small town of North Ogden in the state of Utah, not far from Salt Lake City. It was a quiet, peaceful town, perfect for family life. From a young age, Alexis enjoyed dancing, reading, and spending time with her family, especially her brother, who was not just a sibling but also her best friend. They could spend hours watching movies and chatting. Alexis was known for her cheerful, smiling nature and sociable personality. Growing up, she aspired to be independent from her parents and have her own money for personal expenses. As is often the case, Alexis decided to become a babysitter to earn a small income. She began her search for babysitting opportunities in the spring of 2011, reaching out to acquaintances. Through them, she learned that a nearby couple was looking for a babysitter for their children. Alexis interviewed with them and promptly secured the job. The Millerbergs, Dee 38 years old and Eric 36 years old, portrayed a respectable image as churchgoers, with Dee working in a hospital. They had two daughters. Alexis Rasmussen, a 16-year-old, started babysitting for them in 2011. The couple quickly bonded with her, and Alexis began looking after their kids almost daily. The Millerbergs had an older daughter from Dee's previous marriage, and they were content with Alexis taking care of both her and their younger child. Alexis, seeking independence, enjoyed her earnings, wisely managing her pocket money. The Millerbergs appreciated the peace of mind, allowing them to work and spend quality time together. Alex's parents were also pleased that she was working responsibly, avoiding questionable company. Many of her friends, including Alexis, worked as nannies or waitresses, so it was considered normal. The situation seemed appealing to everyone until one day when a tragedy occurred. On September 10, 2011, Alexis went to look after the two children of her employers, as usual. She was supposed to return home in the evening. However, at 11:30 p.m., the teenager contacted her mother, informing her that the girls' parents had not returned from their date, and she would have to stay longer. Due to this, Alexis asked to stay overnight to avoid returning through the dark streets. The parents allowed her to stay at the Millerbergs' house, considering them a decent family and not anticipating any issues. This was the last call the mother received from her daughter. In reality, Alexis Rasmussen's relationship with her employers was far from professional. Once the young nanny got acquainted with the Millerberg couple, they quickly became friends, but in a negative sense. Both Dee and Eric had a dark past with convictions for the distribution of illegal substances, and Eric had other criminal charges. At the time of the described events, both were on probation after their latest offenses. However, neither Alexis nor her parents were aware of this at the time of her employment, and they had no suspicion that the girl might be in potential danger in their home. Alexis quickly fell under the negative influence of the Millerberg couple, where she worked as a nanny. They introduced her to alcohol, and they would drink together. It started with small amounts, and later the couple began compensating Alexis for her childcare work, not with money, but with drugs. From the outside, it was not apparent that something was wrong with the girl. She consumed very little and returned home late. Therefore, the nanny's parents were unaware of her new habits and believed their daughter was in safe hands, but that turned out to be far from the truth. On September 11, 2011, parents awaited their daughter at home, but she never showed up. Following the overnight stay at the Millerbergs' house, the parents attempted to reach her the next day, but their calls went unanswered, redirecting to voicemail. The missing girl's mother contacted all her friends, but no one had any information about her whereabouts. She also called her daughter's employers, who claimed the girl had left their home in the morning, and they hadn't seen her since. Consequently, the woman reported her daughter's disappearance to the police, initiating an investigation. Alexis was declared missing, and the police, prioritizing the questioning of the couple with whom the nanny had stayed overnight, visited the Millerbergs' home. However, the spouses refused to let the detectives inside, citing untidiness. They spoke with the police officers outside their home, stating that Alexis had left their house around 11:30 in the morning to meet a friend. After her departure, the entire family went to sleep, unaware of the girl's subsequent fate. Officers noted that during the conversation, Dee and Eric seemed possibly under the influence of stimulants, explaining their uncontrolled movements and overly cheerful demeanor. The behavior of the couple appeared suspicious to investigators. However, lacking a search warrant, the police couldn't inspect the house, which seemed peculiar to them. Detectives speculated about whom Alexis was supposed to meet specifically. It was her boyfriend. However, the boyfriend stated that there were no planned meetings that morning. Text messages on his phone revealed a brief exchange that ceased shortly before Alexis went missing. He claimed to have no idea where she could be or with whom she might be spending time. Interviewing other friends and classmates of Alexis, detectives learned that no one had seen her after her disappearance. The runaway theory was dismissed, as all her belongings, including accumulated money, remained at home. Furthermore, she had never run away before and was not considered a difficult teenager. There was no evidence linking her to the criminal world. All leads pointed to the married couple for whom the missing girl worked. Although Alexis's phone couldn't be traced, the last signal pinged at Eric and Dee's home. Their house became the last known location of Alexis, with no evidence of her leaving that morning. Therefore, investigators began a more thorough examination of the couple. It was then revealed that the Millerbergs had previously faced charges for drug distribution, and Eric had a turbulent criminal history. At that time, the couple was on probation. During the investigation, the police discovered that Alexis's friends were aware of the true nature of the relationship that had developed between the nanny and her employers. Prior to Alexis, several teenagers, including friends of the missing girl, had also babysat for the couple in exchange for alcohol and marijuana. These working conditions were acceptable to the minors because it granted them access to substances. Multiple witnesses immediately confirmed this information. It was conclusively proven that Dee had sold prescription medications, to which she had access, to one of Alexis's friends, receiving around $100 in return. Detectives revisited the conversation with the Millerbergs, informing them that they were aware of their illicit dealings with substances. The spouses admitted to providing medications to the teenagers, but denied any involvement in Alexis's disappearance. Nevertheless, they were arrested for drug distribution and violating probation terms. The couple ended up in prison, facing up to 5 years in jail. The case was complicated by their involvement in introducing substances to minors. Police also reached out to friends and acquaintances of the arrested pair in search of valuable information, but everyone refused to cooperate with law enforcement, possibly due to their own potential involvement in criminal activities. At that point, detectives had no doubts that the Millerbergs were responsible for Alexis's disappearance, for which there were still no leads. Detectives obtained a search warrant for the couple's home and conducted a thorough examination. However, they failed to uncover anything suspicious. Instead, a significant quantity of prohibited substances was discovered in the house. Child Protective Services removed Eric and Dee's children, with the eldest daughter returned to her biological father and the younger child placed in foster care. Only a month into the investigation, officers received information from a confidential informant who contacted them by phone. He revealed that on the night of Alexis's disappearance, she did stay at the employer's house. In the morning, she did not leave and did not meet anyone, as the detectives had suspected. Eric offered her potent substances that night, The teenager agreed to try them, and he administered several doses. Following this, Alexis began behaving erratically and lost awareness of her actions. Eric initiated intimate contact with her, and the family matriarch attempted to join their activities but did not succeed. In the process, the spouses noticed that the girl was highly disoriented and had an abnormally low body temperature. Dee, with a medical background, realized that urgent assistance was needed. The couple took her to the bathtub and placed her in hot water to warm her up. Alexis regained consciousness, seeming to feel better. She requested to be left alone to relax. The Millerbergs left the house to smoke and contemplate their next actions, deeply disturbed by her condition. Upon returning, they realized that Alexis was still cold. In response, Eric and Dee took her out of the water, wrapped the teenager in a warm blanket, and placed her on the bed. After that, the couple stepped out again for a smoke to discuss the situation. Upon their return, they found Alexis unconscious, with something resembling mucus coming from her mouth. Dee, being a nurse, attempted to revive the girl, utilizing all her medical knowledge. However, it was too late. By that point, she was already dead. Eric and Dee were deeply frightened. As they were on probation after being conditionally released, they didn't want to end up behind bars again. Consequently, they turned to their friends for help in getting rid of the body. They needed a car, which they didn't possess. However, everyone refused to assist them. No one wanted to get involved in the situation and face imprisonment for being an accomplice. The couple themselves was in a state of panic, fearing a return to prison and the potential loss of their children. In desperation, they called another acquaintance and asked to borrow a car. The person agreed and provided them with a vehicle. The couple loaded the girl's body into the trunk and headed to another county. Here, in a remote forested area, they concealed the body. The confidential informant who alerted the police to all this was Eric Smith. He had provided them with his car when he was unaware of what was happening, and later assisted the couple in moving the already decomposing body to a more secluded location. All the information he provided was heard during this trip. Feeling guilty for aiding this monstrous couple, he decided to disclose everything to the investigators, who were precisely lacking this information. Thanks to this tip, the police were able to locate the body of the missing girl. On October 18, 2011, 38 days after her disappearance, the victim was found in a fetal position, with her legs pressed against her body. She was partially concealed in a garbage bag. Identifying the person in front of the police immediately was impossible due to the advanced state of decomposition. The body was discovered in a shallow grave that barely concealed it from prying eyes. A thorough forensic examination was needed to identify her, determine the cause of death, and unravel all the circumstances surrounding the incident. The girl was identified through dental records and fingerprints. As expected, it was Alexis Rasmussen. The autopsy and analysis of her body revealed that the levels of heavy substances in Alexis's system were 7 times higher than the lethal dose. This could have been the cause of death, but not the only one. In addition to that, there were signs of strangulation, blunt force trauma, and stab wounds on her body. Precisely identifying all the injuries was challenging due to the poor condition of the body, which had decomposed significantly. The exact cause of death could not be determined, so the most obvious one, overdose, was chosen. However, there was no doubt that this was not an accidental death, as violence had been inflicted upon the girl. The Rasmussen family requested confidentiality during the investigation due to the deceased's underage status. A memorial service for the girl took place, attended by many residents in her hometown of Ogden. The tragedy deeply shocked everyone. The teenager's body was laid to rest on October 29th. In exchange for providing information and assisting the investigation, Smith, the informant, was promised immunity from prosecution for complicity in the crime. His information proved invaluable in locating the body, gathering evidence, and filing charges. Consequently, he appeared in court only as a witness. During the trial preparation, phone calls from Eric's mobile were scrutinized. Indeed, on the night of the girl's disappearance, he repeatedly called his friends asking for help in disposing of something. Surveillance cameras, one of which captured Nurse Dee, were also reviewed. On September 10, 2011, around 10:20 p.m., a woman visited the Walgreens pharmacy to purchase some prescription drugs that induce an altered state of consciousness. Police conducted a more thorough search of the detainee's house, and with the help of luminol, tiny bloodstains were discovered. It was evident that attempts had been made to conceal the traces of what had happened through a meticulous cleanup. However, luminol can reveal bloodstains even after cleaning agents have been used. Apparently, the unsuccessful criminals were unaware of this. A portion of an old carpet was cut and discarded. The police believed that it might have contained blood that the spouses couldn't wash away. Therefore, they simply cut out this piece and disposed of it. The police were puzzled about where the blood in the house could have come from. According to the informant's story, there shouldn't be any after an overdose. This implies that something more sinister happened in the house, possibly involving violence against the victim. Following this, detectives obtained a search warrant for their friend's car, in which the victim was transported. However, it turned out that the car had already been sold in another county. It took some time to retrieve it. When the vehicle was eventually located and sent for examination, it was discovered that the old trunk upholstery had been cut and discarded. Nevertheless, microscopic traces of blood remained underneath. All these DNA samples were sent for analysis, revealing that they belonged to the murdered Alexis. The informant, in conversation with the detectives, also suggested that it could have been a deliberate murder. Perhaps the couple decided to get rid of the nanny to prevent her from reporting their drug distribution and harassment to the police. The police leaned towards this version, as there were some signs of premeditation. Initially, Eric was charged with child abuse and drug distribution, while Dee was only charged with forging prescriptions for medical drugs. After the new facts emerged, the man faced additional charges of first-degree murder, obstruction of justice, and engaging in sexual acts with a minor. Subsequent forensic examinations proved that the girl's body had been violated after death, which was also criminally punishable under state laws. The decision was made to try the couple separately. Dee's trial began in April 2012, where she was charged with illegally obtaining a prescription for controlled substances and obstructing justice. She was sentenced to 7 years of imprisonment in 2015, however. By that time, she had already served 3 years during the legal proceedings. The woman was supposed to go to prison to serve the remaining sentence. Nevertheless, the defendant was deeply outraged by the jury's decision. She delivered a touching speech, expressing regret for what had happened. However, she did not admit guilt or involvement in the girl's death. In her opinion, her husband was entirely to blame. While not justifying her actions, Dee extended her deepest condolences to the family of the deceased. The court considered that imprisonment was an appropriate punishment for the couple's actions. The charges included distributing substances among minors, engaging in sexual intercourse, and intentionally intoxicating a teenager with prohibited substances. Furthermore, the couple clearly attempted to dispose of the body and confuse the investigation. It is noteworthy that the body was buried twice because Eric considered the initial location insufficiently secure. This eloquently speaks to the meticulous planning of the crime. Dee claimed that over the 3 years of serving her sentence, she had realized her mistakes. She expressed a desire to reintegrate into society and requested parole. Attempting to discredit participants in the judicial process, she failed to garner belief, and the Review Commission advocated for her continued incarceration, rejecting her manipulative tactics. Dee was returned to prison to serve the remainder of her sentence. However, she eventually obtained parole. Interestingly, the love story between Eric and Dee swiftly concluded while she was still in prison. Eric, her former lover, sought to resolve their relationship issues, but Dee filed for divorce, and they officially separated while he was incarcerated. Eric altered an old tattoo on his neck, which initially bore Dee's name but was changed to Death. This led to disciplinary action against him, and he received the punishment while awaiting trial in July 2013. The trial of Eric Millerberg began in March 2014. He did not plead guilty to any of the charges. According to him, on the night of the girl's disappearance, she did stay overnight at their place to babysit the children. After returning home from their date, they started using substances together. The girl allegedly asked for it herself, took 3 doses, and then they attempted a threesome. However, their condition did not allow it. Regarding the administration of drugs, the accused claimed that Alexis did everything voluntarily. During the trial, Eric Millerberg's turbulent criminal history was revealed. From 1997 to 2011, he had multiple encounters with the law, including convictions for burglary, use of firearms, and resisting arrest. He had also been associated with a group advocating for white supremacy. During the trial, friends and acquaintances of the victim occupied the front rows of the courtroom. Grief was evident in the eyes of these people. The hearing was difficult for them as certain delicate details of the minor girl's life became known for the first time. Prior to this, relatives were unaware that the substances provided to the babysitter as payment were supplied by adults. They were the ones who introduced the teenager to these substances. It seems that the head of the Millerberg family felt no remorse for this. He even boasted to fellow inmates during the trial that he supplied minors with illicit substances and engaged in inappropriate behavior with them. Apparently, conflicts with other inmates began for Eric on this basis. He was attacked by his cellmate, Simon Russell, who inflicted about 30 stab wounds, mainly targeting the head and neck, and Eric sustained defensive wounds on his hands. After the incident, the victim was transferred to the hospital, where his satisfactory condition was confirmed and he received first aid. Eric survived the attack. Within a day of the incident, the assailant was charged with attempted murder and obstruction of justice. Thanks for joining today's crime journey. I'm Diana, your guide in the shadows. Subscribe, hit the bell, and let's keep exploring mysteries together. Stay curious, stay alert, and see you next time. Take care.